Ever wondered how often we get sidetracked in life, losing sight of our goals and purpose? Life is an intricate tapestry of events, experiences, and interactions. It's like a bustling city, teeming with sights, sounds, and stimuli that can easily pull our attention in 1,000 different directions. Picture this. You're on your way to an important meeting, but on your route you're bombarded with flashy billboards, loud music, and bustling crowds. Before you know it, you've missed your turn, and you're off course. This is a simple, everyday example of how distractions work. They are those flashy billboards and loud noises that derail us from our path, our objectives, and our goals. They come in all shapes and sizes. A sudden phone call while you're working on a project, a captivating TV show when you're supposed to be studying, a gossiping colleague when you're trying to concentrate. These distractions, as harmless as they may seem in the moment, can accumulate and lead us astray. They can cause us to lose focus, wasting precious time and energy that could have been directed towards achieving our goals. But distractions don't just affect our worldly pursuits, they can also have a profound impact on our spiritual journey. Just as a sudden phone call can disrupt your work, worldly distractions can disrupt your connection with the divine. They can lead you away from the path that God has laid out for you, making it difficult to hear His guidance and follow His plan. Each one of us has a divine purpose, a unique role in the grand scheme of things, a part in God's master plan. But the constant noise and chaos of life can drown out the gentle whisper of this divine calling. Distractions, my friends, are not just obstacles to our worldly success. They are also barriers to our spiritual progress, hindrances that can keep us from realizing and fulfilling our spiritual purpose. Just as these distractions can lead us away from our worldly goals, they can also lead us away from our spiritual purpose, God's plan for us. The Bible is filled with examples of individuals who allowed distractions to lead them away from God's plan. Let's take a journey back to the Garden of Eden, where we meet the first couple, Adam and Eve. They were living in perfect harmony with God's plan. But then, along came the serpent. The serpent, craftier than any other creature, distracted them with the allure of knowledge, the promise of being like God. This distraction led them to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, an act that was in direct disobedience to God's command. The consequence of this distraction was severe. They were banished from the garden and introduced to a lifetime of hardship. Now let's set sail to the story of Jonah. God had a plan for Jonah. He wanted him to go to the city of Nineveh and preach against its wickedness. But Jonah, distracted by fear and disobedience, tried to flee from God's plan. He boarded a ship headed in the opposite direction, trying to escape God's command. But God, in His infinite wisdom, sent a great storm and a giant fish to swallow Jonah. This was not a casual distraction. It was a life-threatening detour that led to Jonah being swallowed by a giant fish. After 3 days and nights, Jonah repented, was spat out, and finally carried out God's plan. These biblical examples illustrate the dangers of allowing distractions to lead us astray from God's plan. Adam and Eve's distraction led to the fall of mankind, and Jonah's distraction led to a near-death experience. But in both cases, God's grace and mercy were evident. Despite their distractions and diversions, God still used them to fulfill His plan. So what can we learn from these stories? They serve as a reminder that distractions can lead us away from God's plan, but His grace is sufficient to bring us back. They teach us that no distraction, no matter how enticing or terrifying, is worth the consequences of straying from God's path. These biblical examples show us the consequences of allowing distractions to lead us away from God's plan. Recognizing distractions is the first step towards overcoming them. And this is especially true when it comes to our spiritual journey. Distractions can come in all shapes and sizes, and they are not always as obvious as we might think. Sometimes, distractions can appear good or even harmless. They can come dressed up as opportunities, as dreams, or even as relationships. They might not seem like distractions at all on the surface. But if they pull us away from our commitment to God and His plan for us, then that's exactly what they are. Distractions. To illustrate this, let's look at the biblical story of Jesus in the wilderness, as recorded in the book of Matthew. In this story, Jesus was fasting and praying in the wilderness for 40 days and nights. During this time, He was tempted by the devil, who tried to distract Him from His mission. The tempter offered Jesus food, power, and even tried to manipulate Him into testing God's love for Him. But in each instance, Jesus recognized these offers for what they were, distractions. He knew that they were attempts to pull Him away from God's plan, and so He rejected them, choosing instead to stay focused on His mission. Now, we may not face the same kinds of temptations that Jesus did in the wilderness, but we do face distractions every day that can pull us away from God's plan for us. These distractions can come in the form of money, fame, relationships, or even our own dreams and ambitions. It's important to remember that not everything that looks good or feels good is necessarily good for us, or part of God's plan for us. We need to discern what is a distraction and what is part of God's plan. We need to ask ourselves, is this pulling me closer to God or is it pulling me away from Him? Recognizing distractions is not always easy, but it is crucial. It's the first step towards overcoming them and staying focused on God's plan for us. So let's be vigilant, let's be discerning, because it is crucial to discern what is a distraction and what is part of God's plan for us. Overcoming distractions requires focus and determination. Imagine walking on a narrow path, your destination clear ahead, but as you walk, thorns grow alongside the path, trying to prick you, distract you, and veer you off course. These thorns are the distractions in our lives that try to divert us from God's plan. But just like a determined traveler, we can overcome these distractions with the right tools. The first tool is prayer. Prayer is our direct line to God, a way to seek His strength and wisdom. Just as Jesus prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane, we too can turn to prayer in times of distraction. When Jesus was in the garden, He was deeply distressed and troubled. Yet He prayed, "Abba, Father, everything is possible for you. Take this cup from me, yet not what I will, but what you will." Next we have the Bible, our manual for life. It's filled with God's words, His promises, His guidance. The Bible is like a lamp to our feet and a light to our path, helping us to stay on course. In Proverbs 3 verses 5 and 6, we're reminded, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight." Lastly, we have the tool of seeking God's guidance. This is an active, ongoing process. It's about constantly seeking to understand God's will, asking Him to guide our steps, and being willing to follow where He leads. It's about trusting that even when our path seems to be filled with thorns, God is leading us to a place of blessing. Remember, distractions will come, but they don't have to define us. We can overcome them by staying focused, determined, and relying on God's strength. We can use the tools He has given us, prayer, His word, and seeking His guidance, to navigate through these distractions. By seeking God's guidance, we can overcome distractions and stay focused on His plan for us. Staying focused on God's plan is essential for our spiritual growth and fulfillment. In this life, we are constantly bombarded with distractions, like a ship tossed by the turbulent sea. However, we must remember that it is in the heart of the storm where we find our true compass. That is God's plan for us. God's plan is not just a roadmap for our lives, it's a blueprint for our souls, a divine design for our ultimate fulfillment and happiness. Take for example the story of Noah in the book of Genesis. Noah lived in a world that was full of distractions and diversions, a world that had lost its way. But Noah was different. He was a man who walked with God, a man who was focused on God's plan. Despite the distractions around him, Noah stayed true to God's command. He built an ark, a monumental task that took him many years to complete. And how did the world around him react? They laughed, they ridiculed, they scorned. But Noah, he stayed focused. He knew that God's plan was the best plan for him, even if no one else could see it. And what was the result of Noah's unwavering focus? He and his family were saved from the great flood that wiped out the rest of humanity. His focus on God's plan not only saved his life, but it also ensured the continuation of mankind. Just like Noah, we too are living in a world full of distractions. These distractions may not be as severe as in Noah's time, but they are distractions nonetheless. They are the things that pull us away from God's plan, the things that make us lose our focus. But remember, God's plan is the best plan for us. It is a plan crafted with divine wisdom, a plan that brings us closer to our true purpose. It is a plan that leads us to fulfillment, a plan that brings us joy. By overcoming distractions and staying focused on God's plan, we can live a fulfilled and purposeful life.